Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do to the like button. Shouts to Brandon Davies. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel, it would be awesome if you also did that while you're here. Let's get into it. Among the headlines in recent days is the announcement of the matchups for the annual ACC-SEC Challenge. Let me run you through the matchups. We got 16 games, and then we'll get Norlander's thoughts on it. It's going to start Tuesday, December 2nd. Florida at Duke, North Carolina at Kentucky, Tennessee at Syracuse, Georgia at Florida State, Miami at Ole Miss, Missouri at Notre Dame, Texas A&M at Pitt, Virginia Tech at South Carolina, Oklahoma at Wake Forest. Then we'll go to sleep, wake up. It'll be Wednesday, December 3rd. Then we'll get Louisville at Arkansas, Clemson at Alabama, NC State at Auburn, Virginia at Texas, LSU at Boston College, Mississippi State at Georgia Tech, and SMU at Vanderbilt. Norlander, good to see you.
You too.
Rest in peace, Brian Wilson. I recognize your shirt.
And Sly Stone. I got both behind me here. We're not, by the way, we weren't able to go live on this episode because our normal service provider is down. So you're watching this after the fact, but I had to give shouts to both Pet Sounds and Stan, my favorite Sly and the Family Stone album there. So yes, we are fully repping the music legends we lost this week here on the pod.
We have lost some giants in recent days. I just ran you through the 16 games. Obviously, this thing didn't go so well for the ACC last season. What stands out here? Do you think the ACC fares better this time around?
Well, they're running it back. Trivia time. Do you remember the record of the ACC last season?
14-2.
Yes, it was 14. Kind of lopsided.
Duke beat Auburn. Clemson beat Kentucky. Every other ACC school involved got mollywopped. And I don't think this was the first indication. I think the first indication was just like looking at the rosters in the preseason.
Yeah, and like Auburn winning Maui. And there was a lot of stuff before this challenge happened last season. But yeah.
But that's challenge is like, oh, wow, what are we watching? Because they just embarrassed the ACC. And from there, the SEC went on to become what is now widely regarded as the best men's basketball conference in the history of the sport.
Yeah, and indeed. And the SEC, obviously, streets ahead of every other league last season. And the ratings across, take a look at any metric you want. SEC was one, and then among the 5 power conferences in college basketball, the ACC was a considerable 5th place. In fact, it was closer to the Mountain West in overall power ranking than it was to the Big East, which was 4th. Got to figure the ACC is going to do better this time around. That in mind, before we talk a couple of the highlights here, let's put it right here, right now, middle of June. Someone find us in the first week of December when I'm serious. Clip this. Parrish hates when I do this, but I'm going to ask you to do it. Clip this, remind us, and let us know how right or wrong we were. How many wins? Let's run through it here. Oh, Mike and the Mad Dog style, the way they used to do it. Let's go. That's a win. That's a loss. Strictly from the ACC side, okay? How many wins is the ACC going to get in this series next season? We'll do it jointly together, okay? I'm going to roll off, and the graphic that is in front of me, this is the way I'm going to do it. So I think it's largely what you just said off, but let's do it again. Florida at Duke. ACC. That's a win? That's a win, right?
I'm going to call that a win for the ACC based on nothing more than home court advantage.
That's fine.
Or a little more than home court advantage.
Let's just go off pure vibes here. Carolina at Kentucky, we'll call that a loss. 1-1. Tennessee at Syracuse. What do you want to do? I'll give this one to you. I'll take the next one.
It's the battle of the oranges.
It's the battle of the one true orange, one true shade of orange, undeniably. I think we've had this conversation on this podcast before, and we both agreed actually, I think it might have been Tennessee, Illinois. Now we go Tennessee, Syracuse. I still prefer Syracuse's shade of orange to Tennessee. Do you agree?
I agree. I like the Syracuse orange more than I like
the Tennessee. We agree that Tennessee's
orange.
probably going to win?
I will take the Vols on the road inside the place formerly known as the Carrier Dome.
Still, on this podcast, it's always the Carrier Dome, except when we do for the Final 4-1. Gosh, it's been
then it could be.
It's been a minute since Syracuse was in the Final 4-1. Now that I think about it, maybe we can get that back next season. I will also say ACC is a loser. So 1-2. A&M at Pitt. You pick it.
A&M at Pitt. I think I took a Texas A&M.
Wow. Okay. 1-3. I'll take that. Next one is me. Missouri at Notre Dame. Give me Notre Dame. I actually think the Fighting Irish will get that one next season. So that's 2-3 for the ACC. Georgia at Florida State.
Georgia at Florida State. I'm going to take Georgia.
Okay, so that's 2-4. Oklahoma at Wake Forest. I'll take Wake. That's 3-4. Miami at Ole Miss. So that's 3-5. We'll take Ole Miss to beat Miami. Virginia Tech at South Carolina. What's the pick, GP?
Virginia Tech at South Carolina. Let's take the Hokies.
Okay. So we just finished Tuesday. We've doubled up the ACC's win total from last season.
Man, they need to clip this and put it on the ACC network.
That's correct. 4-5 for the ACC by the end of Tuesday night. You heard it here first. Wednesday, NC State at Auburn. Auburn wins. So that's 4-6. Louisville at Arkansas. Gary Parrish. Who's winning, ACC or SEC?
You know how much I trust buildings. You know I'm a building truster at my core.
Can't believe we're doing building truster talk in the middle of June.
You know I'm a building truster at my core. I'm going to trust Bud Walton Arena. I'm going to trust Bud Walton Arena to come through for Arkansas. I think Louisville's the better team. I think Arkansas wins the game.
Okay, that's 4-7, 4-5, 4-6, 4-7 for the ACC. SMU at Vandy. I'll take that one. I'll take Vandy. So that's 4-8. Clemson at Alabama. 4-9, GP?
I mean, we're taking Alabama.
Yeah, 4-9.
Building truster.
Here's an interesting one. Mississippi State at Georgia Tech. I can't believe I just called Mississippi State at Georgia Tech interesting.
Yeah, what do you
It's the middle of June, man. What do you want from me? Give it to the Bees?
You're talking to a Mississippian. I'm going Mississippi State.
4-10. Okay.
Is getting bad again. All right, ACC Network.
This is where it just gets outrageous. LSU at Boston College.
Man.
I'll take it. It's in my region. LSU should be better. You know what, though? What the hell? Let's go with the Eagles. That's 5 and 12 or 5 and is that what it is? Not I've lost.
Well, it can't be 5 and 12. Your math. I knew you were going to screw this.
5 and 11. Hold on. We've got Boston.
If you've just done all this and you can't even know the numbers,
take it easy. Well, Boston College. Let's go over the winners again in the ACC. We can get this real quick. Duke won. Notre Dame is 2. Wake is 3. Hokies are 4. LSU is 5. Yeah. So that's 5. That's 5 wins. And then Virginia at Texas is the last one. It's actually a good game.
Texas.
Okay, so we got 3 more wins, but 5 overall. So that's 5 and 11. 5 and 11 for the ACC next season. Okay, mark it down.
David Cobb, our friend David Cobb, he has a piece up at CBSSports.com right now. He also has the SEC. He has different winners and losers, but he also has the SEC winning 11-5.
Okay, there we go. Now let's talk the specific matchups. I think, objectively speaking, the best games here, Florida at Duke, Carolina at Kentucky, Louisville at Arkansas, Virginia at Texas, maybe Clemson, Alabama. What stands out to you? The 2 are the most obvious. Florida at Duke.
Florida Duke is obviously awesome. North Carolina, Kentucky is 2 blue bloods, both of which I have ranked in the top 25 and 1. Those are the 2 clear best games on the Tuesday night. And then on Wednesday, it's Louisville, Arkansas. I think probably followed by maybe NC State, Auburn, or Virginia, Texas. But here's always the way I like to put it. If you could only watch one of these games, they said, hey, you get the TV for 2 hours, 1 channel, you can only watch one of these games. Which one would it be? I think for me, it would be Florida at Duke.
I think it's got to be Florida at Duke. It is conceivable by the time those teams play that they're both in the top 5, although given the nature of really how many strong non-conference games there are for these teams and across the sport, it could be a situation where Duke is ranked 8th and Florida's 14th, but they both look really, really good, and it's a function of how the AP top 25 voting works with all that. But they both register as Final Four national championship contenders next season. That's the best of the bunch, and a good job by ESPN obviously programs this, and to get Florida, your reigning champ, against Duke, that's big time stuff. Duke's got a heck of a non-conference schedule. It's not the only one, but getting this on top of everything else that it's involved in next season is big stuff. Carolina, Kentucky. Where's Carolina a month into the season with Hubert Davis entering a hot seat season? There's some intrigue there. Kentucky year 2 under Mark Pope. What do we get from all of that? But yeah, Florida at Duke is the most enticing one overall. We mentioned Virginia, Texas as the last. It's the last one on the graphic here. Virginia actually has a roster that I think should be expecting to make the NCAA tournament in year 1 under Ryan Odom. They go and play Texas year 1 under Sean Miller, and those two teams from a roster standpoint don't seem to be separated by all that much. So if you're looking for the sneaky good game amongst all of them, I think that is certainly it. But yeah, overall, like, I think they did a pretty decent job. Will Wade going to Auburn to play Bruce Pearl. That could be fun. We'll see what, Wolfpack have done a nice job here building up their roster, and that's obviously got some good potential as well. But overall, leading the pod with it because it came out officially, all but a couple hours ago before we fired up the machine here. There's another Big 12 thing I want to get to before we break, but any other thoughts, comments,
Well, yeah, there's something
that you want to make about this?
Yeah, it's something that always stands out to me, and I first started noticing it when I guess first got this job. In a previous version of my career, I didn't do any of this other stuff. I didn't talk into microphones. I didn't talk on TV. I didn't get into a studio. I just wrote columns. I was just a writer. Like, my first contract with CBS Sports is just to write a column. That's all I was hired to do. And so I would spend the entire season just going to games. I would just fly around and go to games and spend time on campuses. And I guess this was a time when we had the ACC Big Ten Challenge. I never understood why it wasn't a priority to make sure Duke and Carolina were playing home games in the same year on different days. So that if you were somebody like me, the national media,
Right.
you're flying in, you can see Duke on a Tuesday night and North Carolina on a Wednesday night. Now, and then I always argued, and so obviously you're alternating home. This year you're home, next year you're on the road. That's typically the way it goes. So you can't have Duke, North Carolina at home every year. But in the years that Duke and North Carolina are home, great. And then in the other year where they got to be on the road, I would always argue have Michigan and Michigan State play home games that same year, one on Tuesday, one on Wednesday. And so every year, if you were going to cover the ACC Big Ten Challenge, you could say, I'm going to Michigan and I'm going to see a Tuesday night game and a Wednesday night game. Or I'm going to Carolina, I'm going to see a Tuesday night game and a Wednesday night game. And they had the opportunity to do that here, and they just didn't do it. The way you could do it here is same thing, have Duke playing at home on a Tuesday and North Carolina playing at home on a Wednesday. They have Duke and Carolina both playing on Tuesday, and Carolina's on the road, Duke's at home. And then you could just, instead of Michigan, Michigan State, just use Auburn, Alabama. And have them always in the same year playing at home, so that if you're the national media, we're going to Alabama to see. And they just don't do that. Now, you and I work for people who make television schedules, and we have these conversations with them sometimes. Right. So let me state, these things are not ever as easy as I'm talking about them right now. A lot of things go into it, and it's possible I could be talking to somebody in the ACC-SEC office like later today, and they could say, yeah, GP, great idea. You think we haven't thought of that? But like, there's more into it, and we just can't make it work for a variety of reasons. And I would say, okay, but I do think it's a missed opportunity. For whatever reason it doesn't happen, it is a missed opportunity. If I were in charge of it and they said, you can make it how you want, every year I would either have Duke and Carolina playing home games on different days, or Alabama, Auburn playing home games on different days, so that the national media could fly to one place and cover your event on both Tuesday and Wednesday night with high-profile games in awesome basketball arenas.
Yeah, certainly an additional positive impact you can get in terms of overall coverage, but as you just said, there's plenty of logistics that go into that. As well. Between now and when we play this, what I will be interested to see is when these games get played. And it's, they're good non-con matchups, but as I said before, like we are actually, it's borderline an embarrassment of riches how many good non-conference games we have on the schedule upcoming. It just feels like to me between last season and this season, there has been a general uptick. We'll get to some more of that, by the way, next week on the pod. But the ACC just completely pratfalling against the SEC. That was it wasn't the thing that made everyone stop and take notice that the ACC was down, the SEC was good, because there was some of that going in, but it certainly put those carts on those tracks for the rest of the season, and understandably so. And the data back that up in terms of the strength of one league and the inferiority of another league. Where will those respective leagues be by the time we get to nearly a month into the season when they get played? One more quick bit of conference news, GP, just real quick. We don't have to go too deep in it, but also earlier on Thursday, the Big 12 did release not its schedule, but its rotation, its partners. Which teams are schools only going to play once? Which are they going to play twice with home and homes? To me, there are six schools that matter more than any other heading into next season, and they are Houston, Arizona, Kansas, BYU, Texas Tech, and Iowa State. GP, I don't even know if you've seen this yet, but I'm going to give them to you real quick and just inform the audience, because last season the Big 12 did some good and had some misses here. So in the Big 12, with the way its 18-game league schedule works, is there are 3 two plays. Every school will get a home and home in league play with 3 other schools. Houston, the preseason arguable number 1 team going into next season, it will two play Baylor, Cincinnati, and then in-state Texas Tech. Now, Houston got Kansas twice last season. It got Arizona once. Next season, Kansas, Arizona only once. Houston and Texas Tech, JPT Choppin, first team All-American. Miles Uzian might wind up being a first team All-American. We'll see. But you had to get those two at minimum. Baylor also in state. I get that. Cincinnati, their old American Athletic Conference bud there, and we'll see if Cincy's relevant. Arizona, GP, ASU as you'd expect. But I like these two. It gets Kansas twice this year, as it should. BYU and AJ Debance twice. That's a really wise move. For the BYU end of it, by the way, they get Arizona twice, as I mentioned. They get Texas Tech twice. I kind of like that. 2 of the richest programs in the sport this offseason and transfer cycle. And then, of course, BYU will get Utah twice. For Kansas, Arizona, K-State, obviously. And then it will have Iowa State, which is a good move. Iowa State in GP's preseason top 25-1. Cyclones make a ton of sense there. For the Cyclones, they get Baylor, Kansas, and then their third two play is Oklahoma State. We'll see what the Cowboys can do in year 2 under Steve Lutz. And then Texas Tech is the 6th team. They have BYU, Houston, and then Colorado is their 3rd team. For the most part, GP, I think the Big 12 did a pretty good job here. You can't appease all masters. Some of these are rivalries in terms of the two plays and all that. But overall, I'd say, not knowing when they're going to play and all that stuff is literally going to be sorted out with the TV networks over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. I thought the Big 12 did a pretty good job here, making sure it got most of the most relevant teams to playing against each other next season on the conference schedule.
Yeah, obviously, if you're just trying to make as many compelling matchups as possible, they fall short of that. But there's a lot of things that go into this that just trying to create the best games as many times as possible isn't the end all be all.
Yeah, so BYU and Utah have to play twice. That would be unacceptable for those fan bases. So you just got to do it. Even
that's right.
So might not be better than the 14th best team in the Big 12 next season.
That's right. So for my purposes, I would want BYU and Houston playing twice, BYU and Texas Tech playing twice, maybe BYU and Kansas playing twice, because I want to ensure AJ Debance is in Allen Fieldhouse.
Yeah.
Right? That's a moment.
Let me check that real quick for you. Go ahead, GP. I got to see where BYU, they will play Kansas next year. I don't know if it's home or away. So keep talking and I'll check right now.
So I would want to make as many awesome on paper matchups as I could. The problem, of course, is that you've got in-state rivals that have to pair up. You're going to have other situations where you go to Houston and you say, hey, your 2 plays are going to be BYU, Texas Tech, and Arizona. And Kelvin says, man, I'm trying to get another conference championship, and you're making this way harder for me than you're making it for Grant McCaslin. That's not right. And these are conversations that actually happen. And so I would have different matchups than them, but I know why they don't have all of the best matchups, and it's because of reasons we've already stated. But I do think, I know that, I don't know, I guess it's just one regular season game, but I do think it's important that AJ Debance is in Allen Fieldhouse.
And he will be.
Yeah. Whether that was intentional or not, where we're going to play this one game between Kansas and BYU, I think they got it that right, because him in that building, that's a moment. We had Kevin Durant in Allen Fieldhouse. That's a moment. You need AJ Debance in that building. That's a moment.
It's the rotation of it. So last year, Kansas played at BYU and they were down by 30. Remember that? That was the moment where it was the final moment where it was, this Kansas team just doesn't have it. This is when they were getting absolutely railroaded and destroyed, eviscerated by BYU on the road. That's when we realized this. So this is the return game, and they just didn't opt to have BYU and Kansas play twice. BYU will get the benefit of hosting Houston, hosting Iowa State. They will not have to go to those venues. But I agree with you. Debansa, he might wind up being one of the 3 best players in the sport next season. It will be awesome. Whenever that game gets played, I would have to think that's going to either be it'll be a prominent primetime game on a Saturday or Monday. That would be my guess. Having him in Allen Fieldhouse is a big win. So again, this is just the opponent matrix. We won't get out and out league schedules. That is way later in the summer. But coincidentally enough, here in this mid-June day, we've got some notable conference scheduling news and figured we'd dive right in.
So there was another big headline earlier in the week. Coaching challenges are coming to college basketball. Norlander had the headline, CBSSports.com. We're going to spend a few minutes on that next. First, though, let's get a word from our partners.
The crowd loves champions. Gladiator 2 is an epic spectacle. Remarkable! To amuse you is my only wish.
The glory is yours, not mine.
Very good. Gladiator 2, rated R. Now streaming on Paramount+.
So coaches' challenges are coming to college basketball next season. Norlander, you handled the headline for CBSSports.com, so why don't you tell everybody what they need to know?
Well, if you're excited over the finger twirl, well, guess what? It's coming back more than ever here. Here's the deal. Next season, coaches will be able to challenge specific calls once per game, and it will be 2 times per game if the first challenge that they issue winds up being successful. If they lose that challenge, then they lose a timeout. If there reaches a point in the game where the team has no more timeouts left, they cannot challenge because the penalty for being wrong is to lose a timeout. This was approved earlier this week by the Playing Rules Oversight Panel, and it is being done to help add to the fluidity of the end of the game. And that is helpful. Now, there's a somewhat narrow window on what coaches can challenge. It is out of bounds calls, basket interference, or goaltending. So whichever player might be affecting whether a basket was good or not, those can be challenged by a coach. Is the ball out on the right person? Was his guy the foot on the line? Was he not? That stuff. Or block charge calls in the restricted area in the semicircle underneath the rim. Those are what the coach can challenge. There was some. And this is a good headline here, okay? But I wrote a newser/column on this because we still are going. This is a positive step of progress, and it's being done to help, alleviate some of the stagnation near the end of the game. GP, there are other rule updates as well. We are going to have, we're going to have continuation. So interpreted, I think, close to what we have at the NBA level with continuation for N1, as I wrote in the story. I think that is going to be a official by official, case by case situation. That is a relatively major update to the game flow and gameplay of college basketball. It will obviously benefit the most talented players on the floor. I think that'll be a little bit rickety to get going. Nonetheless, we will have that. So that's a noted update in addition to a couple other minor ones. But there was positive response to this, and I think there should be. But unfortunately, if you saw the headline and thought this meant, okay, coaches' challenges are coming, we're going to get rid of this parade of monitor reviews, that's just not going to happen. I mean, officials are still going to be able to go to the monitor of their own volition at any point in the game for scoring, quote, timing mistakes, scoring errors, shot clock violations, 2-point versus 3-point field goal attempts, flagrant fouls, end quote, and even more. I would like to see specific, and the NCAA in its release said, listen, we're going to have a point of emphasis in trying to speed up the game, just not have this be something that is unfortunately become a serious bug when it comes to college basketball. And college hoops is not the only. NBA, you watch the NBA games, they have this issue as well. I would like to, in every essence where if a monitor review is necessary, quote unquote necessary, those reviews happen during media timeouts. For example, sometimes you get this. Some guy makes a 3, his toe was actually on the line. They make the correction during the commercial break. You come back, hey, just so our audience knows, that 3-pointer that happened a minute and a half ago in game time, it's actually 2. Here we go. That, to me, when that happens with 13 minutes to go in the second half, it doesn't affect the ultimate outcome of the game because there's more than enough time for the players to play out and for the game to play out as need be with all of that. I don't think that we have enough here to really give me confidence, GP, that this issue that I know you as much as, and I say that seriously, I know you deal with this as much as anyone because you're literally sitting in the studio and sometimes waiting to go live on television, sometimes at 1:07 in the morning. So you are as sensitive and aware to this issue as any diehard fan that is watching the games. Quite clearly, it has become a plague on the sport. This should improve it. But the bottom line is, if you think this headline is going to lead to a massive reduction in monitor reviews, I would love to be wrong. You know me. I tend to be rosy on outlook. I'm just not there yet. I think there actually needs to be more work done in specific intention when it comes to officials, monitor reviews, under what circumstances, what needs to be reviewed, what can be simply put off to media timeouts when they can get that done when there already is a stoppage in play. Your thoughts on the rule change that will be coming to college hoops next season?
I largely agree with you. It's a step in the right direction, but the idea that it's just going to make the viewing experience perfect or better than ever is just, we're short of that. And you're exactly right. Like, I run into these, like, I know fans hate it. I do too. All the monitor reviews. But it does quite literally impact my life. It is not just at the end of games, 1:45 in the morning. We don't sit at that desk all night without moving. Like, we have a bullpen area that we call the bullpen area, and we all sit out there and eat and watch games and talk and whatever. And then when there's about 4 minutes left on the clock before a half, the stage director comes in and says, all right, hey, we're at the 4. And we all go out there and sit. And suddenly you're just in a different space. And it is often freezing in that studio. All right. Just very cold and everybody's free. So you get out there because you think you're going on TV in about 5 minutes, 6 minutes or so. And, you got to get your shots right, get your shot sheets out there, look at some
makeup
highlights.
Touch up on the whole deal. Yeah.
All makeup, touch, all that stuff. And then they're at the monitor and it's like, man, we've been out here 20 minutes. I'm freezing. And my food's getting cold and whatever, there's just it's just irritating. And then you do it late at night. You're exactly right. It's like, yo, man, I got another podcast to do as soon as I get back to my hotel. Then I got to do another show tomorrow morning at 9. Every review right now is costing me 10 minutes. It's 10 minutes and 10 minutes. So it's irritating. This will help, but they're still going to be at the monitor all the time. And this is a thing that I used to have a strong opinion about that I've just about flipped it completely. I used to be of the opinion, hey, if you can get it right, you should get it right. All right. Like, hey,
I'm largely with you on this. I've walked back some of my feelings, not entirely. Yes. Yeah.
If you can get it right, get it right. That's where I used to be. Hey, we have all the technology. If you can get it right, you should get it right. Now I'm like, I don't care, man. Let's just play. Let's just play. I don't care. Similarly, we all have these things in our hands that deliver news to us all the time. There's probably a point in our lives where we were like, man, what if you ever carried around something and everything that was happening in the world, you would know about it immediately? You'd be like, that would be amazing. Well, so now here we are. Do we really need this? Do I need to know everything that's happening in the world the second that it's happening at all times? Nope. Not only do I don't think I need it, I don't think it's good for me. All right. So do we really need to get every little thing in a basketball game right? No, I don't think we need to. If you take 6 seconds out of a game, we play a 40-minute game. If you make it 39 minutes and 54 seconds and just rip 6 seconds out of the middle of the first half, it has no impact on the game whatsoever. None. So I don't need to get every little thing right there. I don't need to get every little let's just play. And it rips so much drama out of the end of the games when you're just watching 3 men huddle around a monitor and look at something. And we're like, it kills the flow. It kills the intensity. It makes for bad television. At the end of the day, it's a TV show. It's a television product. It's not good television. So step in the right direction, sure. Complete fix, no. But better than what we had last season. And that became increasingly clear throughout the season, even in the NCAA tournament. We got to do something about this, and ASAP. I applaud them for doing something about it ASAP, but we're still going to have some issues to some degree.
We will. And even specifically on, timing errors, as I wrote in the column, unless it is actually egregious, and I would actually argue this would rarely ever apply because of the nature of how basketball is even played. If for whatever reason you have a timing error, and it's not like this happens weekly in the game, it doesn't, but let's, for whatever reason you lose a second and a half, with 2.5 minutes to go, who cares? Like that's not going to impact the ultimate score of the game, especially with how possessions move and players up and down the floor. These tiny discrepancies in game clock, just even I would even argue 20.5 seconds versus 20.9. I would argue that still is not worth the monitor review and stoppage. It's just that much time to me. There is an indiscernible threshold, whether that's 15 seconds to go, 10 seconds to go. That I get. Once you are truly in a one possession game with much less on the shot clock, and the shot clock's entirely turned off, then I'd hear the argument for it. But I ended the column with this, like, another rule change that's coming, which is necessary, is there's now going to be the option for common foul, flagrant 1 and flagrant 2 for shots to the groin. This was most notable last season when JT Toppin got kicked out of a game for an inadvertent groin shot, and then Grant McCaslin said, "I'm going to come join you back there, buddy," and he was out before the first media timeout. And so now there will be the ability to look at the shots to the groin and say, okay, is this a flagrant 2? Are you gone? Flagrant 1, where it's 2 free throws and possession of the ball, or is it just a common foul? That's good. But also, every single time that happens, as a necessity of reviewing it, it isn't reviewed. They're going to go to the monitor. So I found it all too appropriate that in a release that leads on how coaches are going to be able to challenge and we're going to increase flow of the game. Oh, by the way, we're going to redo that whole how we interpret the groin shot stuff. And by doing that, there will be more monitor reviews making up for it.
Yeah, and I don't like the more monitor reviews, but I do like them having more leeway there.
I agree too, yes.
There are times in basketball games where things happen and you go, oh, but it struck him above the shoulders, or in the groin. And it's like, well, by the letter of the law, he's got to go to the locker room. He's done tonight. But we all are watching and we're going, this ain't right. We're all JT Toppin was a perfect example of this. The whole world watched that, and unless you were on the other side of it, you probably said, this is crazy that they're kicking him out of the game. But based on the way everything was written and once this happens, this is what has to happen, then he's got to be removed. And none of us like, so now that the officials will have some leeway, and it won't be without controversy, because one guy's going to get kicked out of a game, and then the same thing's going to happen in another game, and that guy's going to get to stay in the game, and then those videos will get spliced together, and we'll have our controversy. But I like officials having leeway on this stuff, because too often, and I'm not insisting it happens often, but it happens enough to where we recognize it. There are times where people have been removed from games, and it doesn't make sense based on anything other than, well, that's just what the rules say have to happen now.
Agreed. Listen, positive steps forward. We'll see how it is implemented next season, what changes there are. The goal here is to get games back. One last thing, and then we can talk Zeigler and call it a show. But it's been an issue for the college basketball audience, like the people that care enough to find this pod. Hey, we absolutely love you. You find this pod in the middle of summer with us the whole way. Appreciate you on that. This is the group, and there are, I think literally not as much as I'd like to believe there are millions listening to this podcast. I know this episode, I know that's not necessarily true, but there are millions of college basketball fans. When the game times, the windows for the games have now crept to 2 hours and 7 minutes, 2 hours and 11 minutes. And it's not in that 2 hour window, or even that 2 hour, 2 minute, 2 hour, 3 minute window. And it affects how you view, okay, this game is now going long. I got to change to this station, or I got to log out of this app and go to this to see this kind of game. It does have a real time impact on how people enjoy watching the sport, looking for the teams, their favorite teams, and doing all that. So all of this is being done with the intention of getting it back to having the average game length in the regular season closer to that 2 hour window. We'll see if they can get that done.
One last thing to touch on before we get out of here. Headline from this morning: a U.S. District Court judge has denied Zakai Zeigler's motion seeking a fifth season to be on the University of Tennessee's men's basketball team. The judge noted that during a hearing on the motion, Zakai Zeigler did acknowledge that name, image, and likeness compensation for NCAA athletes is controlled independently by third-party NIL collectives and brands, and that those collectives could also provide former players like himself with NIL compensation. In other words, the judge is saying, if they want to give you this money, they can give you this money. Nobody's stopping them. Obviously, the catch is they ain't going to give it to me unless I can play basketball. But in the ruling, the judge ended it with these words: this court is a court of law, not policy. And what the NCAA should do as a policy matter to benefit student athletes is beyond the reach of the Sherman Act and TTPA, and by extension, this court. Zakai Zeigler's attorney released a statement. I'll read that to you, then I'll get your thoughts. We are disappointed the court declined to grant a preliminary injunction on the basis that the NCAA does not directly control NIL compensation, just days after the House settlement confirmed that they would do exactly that. This ruling is just the first chapter of what we believe will ultimately be a successful challenge. We intend to press forward and are evaluating the best path ahead for Zakai, end quote. First, let me ask you, do you agree with that sentiment that the House settlement confirmed that schools are going to be running or in controlling collectives? That's not entirely true, is it?
No, that's not. No, that's a little bit too broad of a statement for me personally on that. I wouldn't, continue on, but I would not say I agree with that.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with the sentiment, but either way, here's the gist of it. Zakai Zeigler just wanted to play a fifth-year basketball to make a lot of money, period. Yes. He had no other there was this COVID thing, or, I only played 6 games my sophomore year, or there's no come on, guys, give me. It's just like, I want to do this because these people will give me a lot of money to do it. And the judge here said, I ain't gonna be the one that grants you the injunction. So we'll see where it goes from here. But it's obviously it was a long shot anyway. Perhaps I think we suggested as much. I know you did, but still not a great day for Tennessee basketball.
No, not. Long shot. And because one of the other things the judge said, apparently the state of Tennessee has been one of the central states in terms of really pushing against current NCAA rules and having legislation be more beneficial for the student athlete. The most prominent example is Diego Pavia, who's going to play another year at quarterback for Vanderbilt. But keep in mind, among a couple of other discrepancies, one of the big ones was he wasn't using. The judge in his case ruled that he wasn't using his clock playing at the JUCO level for his years eligible at the Division I level. Zakai Zeigler doesn't have this. He played, a tremendous amount of games in his career. And now I feel obligated to say it in real time to remind our audience. I think it was 138. It might even be more than that. Zakai Zeigler played in his career. Look at your boy here, 138, right off the top of the dome. So he
more important than the 138 is in 4 consecutive years he played 35, 30, 36, and 37.
Yeah,
he did it. He did what you're supposed to do.
He fulfilled his college experience. Whether he pursues further litigation, I guess remains to be seen. To listen to his lawyer, it would seem like they're going to continue to pursue this, as they have every right to do. It getting struck down in the state of Tennessee actually signals to me that the slope gets even steeper here. There is a footnote in the ruling here from the judge. It says, quote, the court takes judicial notice that the northern, and I apologize for some of the legalese here, but I'm reading this for a point here. The court takes judicial notice that the Northern District of California approved the House settlement on June 6th after the hearing, meaning this hearing. But plaintiff does not base his preliminary injunction request on the economics that may come to pass if NCAA member institutions implement the House settlement. So approval of the House settlement does not change this court's analysis, period, end quote, meaning that everything tied to the House settlement and the truly the sea change in college athletics here, as far as this judge is concerned, does not have bearing on the case and the complaint that the plaintiff, in this case Zeigler, is bringing forth to the court. It is a blow to Zeigler. It's a blow to Tennessee. I'm not surprised it happened. I don't think he ultimately gets a 5th year of eligibility. And it is a reminder, I think, in the big picture here, while way more often than not, when there is a lawsuit brought against a school, a university, or the NCAA, usually that lawsuit goes in favor of the plaintiff, and the NCAA or the school or the conference is on the losing end, typically. But there are cases where that doesn't happen, and the establishment, in effect, wins. That's an instance here, and I think it would behoove us to just keep this at front of mind when we move forward, that, yes, there will be more lawsuits that come. There's right now. House settlement just got finalized. There is a Title IX lawsuit on behalf of some female student athletes that say basically, hey, the way this is tilted against us goes against the spirit and nature of Title IX. Whether that succeeds or not, I don't know. But I think it would be foolish to predict with any real amount of certainty any lawsuit moving forward now that the dynamics of how schools pay their players have changed at the NCAA's behest. Like, this is what they sought. They had to settle for it. They didn't want a chance going to court and losing even more money. But when it comes to player eligibility, GP, the rule is you get 5 years to play 4 seasons. I told you when we talked about this case before, I'm actually in favor of just saying, you know what? You get 5 years to play NCAA athletics. Your clock is 5 years. And if you're lucky enough to say you have 5 and you play every single game imaginable, and that means you wind up playing 170 games, more power to you. But if the breaks of fate are against you and you get injured in 3 of those seasons, you only get, say, 2 full seasons, then that's the breaks as well. I kind of like the blanket overall. I think having an older sport is better for the sport. The older the player, the better the player. I think the skill level and overall play in college basketball during this COVID era has noticeably been up. Now we're set to tick back just a little bit. Not the end of the world. I'm in favor of 5 to play 5 with no waivers, none of that stuff. No red shirts, none of it. You just get 5 to play 5. How this kind of ruling would impact that moving forward, I don't know. I don't think it's coming in the next 2 or 3 years. I would personally be open to it, but I'm not against the idea that, at some point you've expired your play clock. You can get on with your life and allow the next wave of incoming high school recruits get their chance to get, into the college experience and have their opportunity to play.
Because this has gotten harder for high school players.
Questionably, yes.
I mean, there's like top 100 guys signing with mid-major programs because they don't have high major offers anymore. It's never been tougher for a high school basketball player to get into a power conference and play immediately than it is right now. Take Florida, perfect example. Pre-NIL transfer waivers, Florida would be replacing that backcourt with the best high school players they could, or guys who were on their bench probably. Instead, they replace them with like proven high-level established college basketball players. That will make Florida better than Florida otherwise would be, and it prevented high school players who otherwise might have been at a place like Florida from getting to a place like Florida. So these are all unintended consequences of the constant changes in the sport. But I wouldn't be against some version of what you're suggesting. I guess I'd bottom line it this way. I don't know where any of these lawsuits are heading. I just know that we're not going to stop getting them anytime soon. And it is hilarious that less than a week after the House settlement that's designed on some level to bring stability to the sport, we've already got a big Title IX lawsuit ready to go.
And I mean, as reliable as the sunrise, GP.
Yes.
I mean, it really is. And yeah, I understand like there's a certain level of fatigue with this with sports fans. How does this affect how I enjoy college football, college basketball, et cetera? Well, on a certain level, it does, because these policies do shape the way that teams are able to take form and players are able to play. And there are bigger picture impacts, even if you can't immediately see what those are in the moment as they happen here. We can get out of here. Before we do, though, I did want to just say, if I know people watching, listening are aware of we're a couple of big music guys. If the deaths of Sly Stone and Brian Wilson have not yet impulsed you to, and you're not too familiar with their catalogs, please go find them. And Pet Sounds obviously gets a ton of love, as understandably so. It's one of the most influential and important records of all time. But Surf's Up, the album that was made about 4 or 5 years after that, is also nearly as good. And if you have not seen Love and Mercy, it came out, I think it's been a decade now. I mean, you got to be a pretty influential, important person to get an actual biopic made about your life as someone in the music industry. And John Cusack and Paul Dano play 2 different versions of Brian Wilson. Have you seen that movie, GP?
I have not seen that.
It's pretty Dano's insane. I mean, Dano as a young Brian Wilson he's an awesome actor. So if you have not seen that, I highly recommend it. And Brian Wilson, absolutely one of my musical heroes. The one thing here, and we don't have to wax too much on this, but I did want to at least use the pulpit here. For people that, and I wasn't around the 60s when Pet Sounds was made, but in growing up, learning to love music and reading all about it, what always kind of bends my brain is that there are albums that you and I have always just known to exist in this world, right? We were born into this world and we discover this music, and what we don't have a good grasp on, and we can get it with certain other albums that came out during our lifetime. Like I was all but 10 when Nevermind came out, but I do have a somewhat of a grasp and understanding of how that really just altered the dynamic of what the music world is and what it could be, and with all that, in particular, like growing up in the 90s as hip hop really changed so much of what we see about the world. But with the Beach Boys and with the Pet Sounds and with the Beatles, we have albums here that have just become so much a part of our tapestry of our world. When you listen to Pet Sounds in particular, or go and listen to Revolver, listen to Sgt. Pepper, the Beatles and Beach Boys had this like really playful rivalry, and Paul McCartney even had to bow down and say, God Only Knows is the greatest song ever written. Like, I cannot top what Brian Wilson did. These were pieces of art that were inconceivable to our planet until someone came along and thought them up. Pet Sounds is attributed to the Beach Boys, but it is essentially 95% all of Brian Wilson's creation and what was happening in his brain. And he did. This is the thing that I will never get over. I think it's just so amazing. He did it when he was 23 years old. And yeah, there are in some ways, Brian Wilson was a genuine prodigy.
That's the best time to do it in music, though.
Correct. Like, Mozart was doing what he was doing at freaking 9 years old. And yes, the overwhelm, if you go and look at some of the most influential albums, songs, records, pieces of art, I'll specifically put it to music. The amount of it done by the men and women who had not even hit 25 is astounding to me, because in many ways, the human brain, you're still developing a sense of the world, a sense of yourself. But it'll never not blow my mind. Your oldest son is how old right now, GP?
22.
Okay, so he's a year away from being as old as Brian Wilson was when he wrote Pet Sounds. That just is incredible to me. So yeah, if you are unfamiliar with Pet Sounds, go find it. It might be hard for our younger listeners to really, truly, I guess, get a grasp on it, because you might listen to be like, yeah, I've heard Wouldn't It Be Nice or whatever. But listen to the isolated vocal tracks, listen to the isolated orchestral tracks. This is one guy that did this. And Sly Stone, I don't want to slight him either. He was truly, those are two of the 7 or 8 most foundational, influential music figures of the 20th century, or maybe all time in music, and we lost them within 48 hours. That's a massive, massive blow. They were also, in some ways, this phrase gets overused. I think it applies to both of them. They were also torture geniuses. In some ways, we were even fortunate to get as much as we did out of them, and it is a damn shame that they, in order to create their great art, they really endured different kinds of internal tragedies, and some of their own doing, and some of it was succumbing to drugs and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Sly and the Family Stone, also really good stuff, and groundbreaking in their own way. I think they were the first act to get a top 10 hit to feature white men, black women in the same group. I think Sly and the Family Stone was the first one to ever chart that. And trailblazing group as well. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see I got the albums behind me. I know GP's a big fan. Sorry to ramble just a little bit here, but man, oh man, I've been on, as I know you have, I've been on just, playing the records, watching some YouTube stuff, and we'll continue to for the rest of the week. I'm actually seeing, by the way, Ringo Starr tonight. He's playing now here in Connecticut. So I'm taking my kids. They're going to see a living Beatle for that also is not lost on me. The fact that, and my kids are genuinely massive Beatles fans. I got to take my younger one. He's taking bass lessons right now. He loves Macca there. So it is, I'm hoping maybe they do a little bit of a Brian Wilson homage when I go see Ringo and his band later tonight.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I'm doing something similar with my kids later this month. Taking them to see Bob Dylan.
Love it.
Yeah, awesome. It's Bob Dylan, Willie Nelson, and I've seen them both multiple times, and I'm not. If it were just me, I would not be going, because I don't want to see them at this stage. I just know it's a diminished version of both, and I don't it makes me uncomfortable, even if it doesn't make them. But I want my kids. My kids have asked. They want to go, and I want my kids to be able to say they saw Bob Dylan, they saw Willie Nelson. Yeah. So we're going to do something similar to that on Brian Wilson. And by the way, if you care about basketball and don't care about this stuff, just end it now, turn it off, because we ain't getting back to basketball. This is for us. We're just talking. As soon as game 3 NBA Finals was over last night, I went down a rabbit hole. I've listened to Pet Sounds a million times, but I put it on just to, I don't know, I get like that sometimes. Something like this happens and I just want to immerse myself in it. And I started watching interviews and little pieces, and next thing you know, it's 1 a.m. and I'm still up, just immersed in Brian Wilson stuff. And I saw a quote from Bob Dylan one time where he said he needs to donate his ear to the Smithsonian, because he can just hear things that other people can't hear. That was his real gift. He could hear things and compose things, and the melodies and the heart. He's truly a musical genius. A musical genius. My relationship with the Beach Boys is weird. Tell me if this makes sense to you. Tell me if this is the way it happened for you at all. And obviously, I'm a little older than you. Not as much as it looks, but a little. I'm a little older than you. Not as much as it looks, but a little. My introduction to the Beach Boys is fill in the blank. What do you think it is?
I think it's what mine was, and that is them appearing on Full House.
It's Kokomo.
Yeah, so Kokomo is like that's the Full House era. Like the Beach Boys had this resurrection. Yes, I have. I actually lived in Florida when Kokomo was a #1 hit, so I actually have like these these images of being like 7 or 8 at my father's. My father worked at Radisson, and like hearing Kokomo nonstop, and yeah, like that. Uncle Jesse played with them. Yeah. So anyway, that's my introduction.
Kokomo is like this big hit. Is connected to a Tom Cruise movie. They actually wrote it for a Tom Cruise. It was written for the movie, and then it became this big hit, and that was the Beach Boys. And so anytime somebody be like, the Beach Boys are amazing, I'd just be like, Kokomo's not amazing. Like, what are you talking about? It just sort of seemed like cheap pop. Like what? Not with all due respect to Kokomo, it just didn't sound like this is an amazing band to me. But that's the first real thing I'm introduced to with the Beach Boys. And what you
pretty sure Brian Wilson. I could be wrong. Sorry to interrupt. I'm pretty sure that they did that without him too.
That's right.
But
I mean, I didn't remember any of this. Yeah. They did the song without him, so it's not his composition. It's not his words. But they convinced him to get in the video because they felt like they needed it. They needed to make it the Beach Boys. They needed Brian Wilson. And so he's in the video, but he really had nothing to do with that song. And it sounds like nothing, or like that song doesn't fit on Pet Sounds, obviously. Mm-hmm. So, but as I get older and I start to really get into music, and it's like I'm down this Beatles thing, and then I'm down this Rolling Stones thing. You keep the list pop up, and it's like you have to go Beach Boys, Pet Sounds. And it's like, the Kokomo guys? I mean, I guess. And then you realize, oh, wow.
Not that at all. It's not even like, it's not California Girls. It's not I Get Around. Although even like, put on headphones and actually listen to I Get Around and listen to what is happening on that song. Yeah. Listen to what is happening on like In My Room. And these are all like Brian Wilson's harmonies and all that stuff. Continue, but yes, it's Pet Sounds is different altogether.
Yeah, and so like you mentioned the tortured souls, like he really struggled in life. He had mental health issues, drug issues. I saw an interview with him, and he said, "I was a druggie when I should have been a father." Right? Like it's all the stuff that you need for a movie with the highs and the lows and a great artist's life. Like they're all there, and then he struggled with memory loss as he got older, and it's all like this guy was such an inspiration to so many, but then had his own struggles that made life really, really hard. But by all accounts, he did have good relationships with his children, or at least most of his children by the end, and had relationships with the surviving members of the Beach Boys. Like that, a lot of stuff got resolved, before it was too late, which I always think is ideal. But he's just a monster in the history of popular music. And just a funny story, then we'll get out of here. Yeah. So like 2008, I'm in LA for USC UCLA basketball game. Kevin Love was
Mike
at UCLA.
Love of the Beach Boys was Kevin Love's uncle. Continue.
That's right. So I'm out there for that game, and I had sort of not become friends with, but I had a relationship with Stan Love and I believe Karen Love, Kevin Love's parents. I just sort of knew them from back EYBL, ABCD camp stuff, and then when they went to anyway, it's just a Saturday game, and I'm talking to Stan Love after the game, and he says, "Hey, by the way, I don't know what you got plans tonight, but my brother's band's playing."
Oh my God!
My brother's band's playing a little private party tonight. If you'd like to come. Now it's
so funny. You said yes.
Oh, of course, okay. But you like, well, in life you always hear people like, "Hey, my cousin's playing, or my buddy's playing, or my old roommate's playing." And it's usually like down at the bar, singers. It's like somebody said this sentence to me: "My brother's band's playing a party tonight. If you'd like to come." The band is the Beach Boys. His brother's in the Beach Boys. So I remember going, "Of course." Like, are you serious? Of course. And it really was like a private function for, if I remember correctly, a group of attorneys or something. But I remember going, yes, and then immediately thinking, I wonder if Brian Wilson's going to be there. Because like that. With all due respect to everybody, it's like there is the Beach Boys, and then there's the Beach Boys without Brian Wilson, and that's just a different thing.
They're two different things, yes.
Two different things. And he was not there. I still remember having a good time. Uncle Jesse was there. He did play drums.
Well, John Stamos
was there. But it was just like cool. Like I'm here I am with Mike Love's brother watching the Beach Boys. It would be awesome if Brian Wilson were on that stage, but this is still a pretty cool experience. Yeah.
As we wrap, by the way, there is no greater discrepancy. I've said this couple times before. There's no greater discrepancy between quality of an album and underwhelmingness of an album cover than this.
Do you know where that was shot?
It's at the San Diego Zoo, I want to say. I think it's at the San Diego Zoo. If you're listening, I'm holding up the Pet Sounds vinyl that I've got here, and them just like feeding a bunch of goats and all of this. And it was one of the Beach Boys' ideas to do it, and it's now a memorable album cover. But it doesn't. This album cover does not represent what is actually the sonic value and tone of what's on the record. So I've always found.
They subsequently were banned from the San Diego Zoo. The Beach Boys were never allowed back at the San Diego Zoo because they raised so much. They raised so much hell while they were there. They were like throwing stuff at tigers, and it was crazy. Okay, and then if you're curious, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the name Pet Sounds, Brian Wilson was once asked about that and just basically said, "I really like pet sounds, like the sounds that animals make. I really enjoy."
Yeah, I want to say
there's some version of that.
There's something like, and there's an instrumental track on the album. That's that as well. And there might be a story with Mike Love, because Mike Love didn't initially love the album whatsoever, and it wasn't like a commercial hit.
Oh, it was not a commercial success.
Not a commercial hit. All that kind of stuff, and then as so often can happen, like it just the great works of art aren't realized initially, and then they become that after the fact. But I think something Mike Love might have said to Brian Wilson had an impact on it becoming. He had like an issue with the sound of it, and this would make animals scream or something like that. I don't remember the full story, but sell the legend, print the legend. All right, I got to get out of here and take my kid. I appreciate the music corner. If anyone, listen, if you guys, people listening, actually want more music corner, I'm always willing to go there. But Brian Wilson's death in particular hit me pretty heavy yesterday in ways that I didn't even expect. So thanks for listening. Appreciate everyone, and we will have GP. You can wrap it up, but we will have the next version of our top 25 stories of the 2010 past 25 years. Next episode on that with GP and I will be coming next week.
Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry Teagle. He's a legend. Huck Larnell. Thank you guys once again for watching, listening to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, Apple, Spotify. There's more of us than there are of them. That needs to be reflected in the comments. So do that. We'll talk to you again real soon. Till then, take care.